My name is Mona Magno-Veluz. I hunt down ancestors and chase fascinating stories in Philippine history. And today, I will show you my shelf. So reading has always been something in my life. My father was a reader. And when I was younger, my father was telling me to read to improve my vocabulary. And then after that, parang I was starting to read because I wanted to activate my imagination. Parang my imagination is better than any movie I have seen when I was young. When I was young, I went for the Nancy Drew. I went for Anne of Green Gables. I went for Anne Frank, yung mga ganong girl ang main character. When I was a little older, when I spent a lot of time in airports, kasi my job took me on airplanes a lot, I had my Stephen King, Michael Crichton phase. Around that time, I also read the book before movies came out, which is why I've read Harry Potter, I've read Divergent, I've read Percy Jackson. Basta pag gusto ko panoorin yung pelikula, I would read the book first. So reading has been something that was an escape at first, especially when I was younger. But now, siguro, I would say in the last 20 years, reading has been a way for me to understand society better. Because in my line of work, I am a genealogist, I study family histories. It is impossible to talk about the families without understanding the society where they lived. You have to come in with nuance, you have to come in with context, and the books provide that. So my relationship with reading is fun as well as something very useful in my line of work. I am also finding that after I read a book about a certain person, for example, a biography, parang I am able to put my life into perspective sometimes. Na parang, ano ba yan? Nagre-reklamo ako ng pagka-late-late na bagay. Itong taong to, ang dami niyang hirap sa buhay. Nothing compared to mine. So, it puts my life in a certain context na, okay, I'm doing okay. And with that gift, I have to do something for other people. Parang ganun.
As a mother, how do you integrate reading into your household?
When it comes to my kids, of course, as a parent, you have to teach your kids how to read, right? My eldest son, he learned to read on his own. My second son learned to read on his own. And he loves reading. As in, my second son is like Quizbee champion, reads books na I don't even read, like mga niche, yung mga ganon, yung mga philosophical. My daughter is only beginning to appreciate reading, and she's already in her 20s. So, everybody has their own path. And I think what's important for parents is just to give them the opportunities to read. Pero whether they love reading, whether they want to pick this up when they are 6 years old versus 20 years old, it's really up to them. Whenever we go to the bookstore, you pick up what you want. Kasi when I was younger, parang, you can only buy those na walang pictures. Walang ganong restriction eh. Kasi whether they are reading a novel versus reading a comic book or a graphic novel, doesn't matter, basta they're reading. I think that's the important thing.
What motivates you to read?
Alam mo, when I was younger, that's something that I would usually do when I'm going to bed na. Parang sitting on the bed, tapos when I get sleepy, I'll put it down. Ngayon, because I'm reading history books and I am using it for work, when I read now, I actually sit on my table and my first pass of the book, I'm already putting highlighter tape. So, I put highlighter tape on my books. If I feel that this is something I will refer to later, I make notes. So, para akong may textbook, pero it's actually just a regular book that I read. And it's helped me remember these things.
Which book do you wish you could read again for the first time?
I had this when I was younger. I had this kind of affection for Anne Frank. Tapos when I found the book, Living with the Enemy, it is, and I have it right here. So this was actually my son's reading requirement. So he got it as a required reading, and after he read it, it's under juvenile. It's a juvenile book supposedly. It's Living with the Enemy, a diary of the Japanese occupation by Pasita Pestaño Jacinto. So this is a young bride who was from a very prominent family, just got married, and then the war came. So it was very much like Anne Frank kasi it's ups and downs of life during war. Namatay yung kapatid niya in the death march, yung mga ganon. And the first time I read it, again, because my imagination is the way it is, parang nasa 1940, 1945 ako. I really enjoyed it. And it is when the book kind of is very emotional. Yun yung mga books na parang, ay, sana maulit ko ulit yon, mahanap ko ulit yung feeling na yun. Kasi the second time you read it, it's not as compelling. But this is a book that I would like to read again for the first time.
What is the oldest book in your collection?
Actually, it's not here. The oldest books I have in my library are from my dad, na books from the 50s and 60s. He has a lot of history books also. He has a lot of management books na mga outdated techniques in management. But those are the oldest in my collection. Siguro those that I bought personally, mga circa 1990s siguro yon. Ito, Bearers of Benevolence by Racelis. So that's the story of the Thomasites. And it's by Ateneo Press. And this was something that I got when I first started genealogy. Siguro this is circa 1990, 2000, ganon. And it talks about several Thomasites in the country. And it is a memorable book kasi in one of the chapters, the author, Mary Racelis, talked about her ancestry. So yung daddy niya, mami niya, taga saan yung mami niya. And I said, I will do this as practice. I wanted to flex my research skills if I could find her ancestors. Long story short, I did. She was a descendant of Patrick Henry. So that's the guy who said, give me liberty or give me death. Kasi her mother was an American. And her surname was so unique na hindi mo mapagkakamalang iba. They only come from one place in the US. So she is like the 32nd great-grandchild of Charlemagne. So she was the 32nd great-grandchild of Charlemagne. And when I found out, sabi ko, oh my God, I'm so excited. She's like the most prominent Filipino that I've ever researched. That all started with a book. So it was a fun, parang post-read kind of adventure that I had with that book. So not only is it one of the earliest memorable books that I have in my library, but it also kind of represents to me a serendipity that is such a gift when you are a family history researcher.
And what about your most recent book purchase?
My most recent purchase, I'm on my book 2 for 2026. My first one was Jose Rizal and the University of Santo Tomas. And it talks about Jose Rizal as a teenager in UST. So it's a lot of fun kasi they have access, or the author has access to primary records. So hindi lang kwento, hindi lang interpretation of history. He was referring to records of UST. So yung grades ni Jose Rizal, yung the fact na kahit nasa Spain na siya, registered pa rin siya sa UST. So entonces awol si Lolo Pepe.
Which book do you wish you had written?
I think dalawa. One is Dogs in Philippine History. I want to write something like that pero for cats. I think Ian Alfonso did such a good job with Dogs in Philippine History kasi Sure, parang light yung topic niya, di ba? Pero he did not scrimp on research. So it was really well written. And to think, mo, ang dami niyang kwentong naungkat. Di ba, ang saya nun. Gusto kong gawin niya, pero for cats. So this is also another book that I like, and I wish I wrote it. Not because it is a genealogy book, but it is because the family, this is by their deeds, and it's on the paterno family. Ang dami nilang primary records, nakakainggit. And I wish I could write it, and I wish I had this much material. This was something that a genealogist would do. The approach is they have the primary records, they copied it in Spanish, and then they translated it, and then they made a certain note on what it represents. So ganun yun. Like, all of this is based on primary document. I really enjoyed reading this.
Which author would you like to have dinner with?
Alam mo, there are two authors, non-fiction authors that I really admire, and that is Luciano Santiago and Domingo Calleja Abella. So those are two physicians, pero both of them are pillars in Philippine history. Si Calleja became the head of the National Library, and Luciano Santiago is one of the more prominent genealogists that I know of. I want to ask them questions. Like, for example, kay Luciano Santiago, how did he do it nang walang index, nang walang, ang daming mga wala nung panahon niya. He's a genealogist from a time na wala pa yung automation, so I'd like to know how he did it.
And what has reading taught you?
Alam mo, if anything, kasi nung bata ko, ang yabang ko, na parang feeling ko, ang tali-talino ko na, parang ganon. Pero what reading has taught me, and this is also something my father taught me, na parang, alam mo, ang dami mong hindi alam. Reading teaches you to be humble. Because you are not aware of so many things. And when you read somebody's ideas, read well-researched tomes, you know that there's still so much to learn.
What are your top 5 book recommendations?
I will recommend Dogs in Philippine History. That's so much fun. Na for any fur daddy, fur mommy, that would give you a lot of fun. I would also like to recommend How to Stand Up to a Dictator by Maria Ressa. It was a compelling read for me because I appreciated how difficult her situation was and how she approached it. And there was still a call to action after the book. So, you know na it was a difficult situation, she came out of it, and there's still a lot of work to do. So I found that very interesting. I also would recommend False Nostalgia. This is by JC Punong Bayan, False Nostalgia. As somebody who is very active online, talking about economics, talking about history, there are so many myths that you're going to come across about the golden age of martial law. So this book took those very, frequently asked questions and looked for answers for it. And I think it was well done, and it's backed up by a lot of facts. So if you are interested in reading Rizal, not something that was about him, but something he wrote, I would recommend Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, the annotated version of Morga's book. And the annotation was done by Jose Rizal. Conjugal Dictatorship by Primitivo Mijares is also something I would recommend. If you are looking at the martial law era and talagang the very complicated society we were in, the wheeling and dealing, so doon mo talaga makikita na there is still a lot to do for the country. For this not to happen again, we have to have the will as a people not to let this happen again. So yun, parang may automatic, may call to action, merong, you are indignant about the abuse. So hopefully it will impact the reader in such a way na they will act on that. This was also an early book that I read, and I would recommend it, especially to the Bicolanos, kasi it's a very well written book on local history. And that is something that I think us as a generation, my generation at least, we don't talk about enough. Kasi we always talk about national history, never local history. It was written by Elias, translated by the Sun. It was originally in Spanish. And I think this is something that needs to be rediscovered by younger people. And there are a lot of versions of these types of books na I have Battle of Batangas. I have Leyte in the colonial odyssey of Leyte, for example. Those are books that need to be read because it is not taught in school.
So, any tips on building your home library?
Parang immediately akala nila it's all about should I buy first edition? Should I buy certain titles dahil maganda siya tignan on the shelf? If you have the money for first editions, good luck, di ba? Pero I personally feel that you have to buy books that you would want to return to again and again. And also, kasi I have a lot of books already, di ba? I told you I had several eras. So yung mga fiction books ko, because I'm not coming back to them anymore, ang hirap naman maalikabukan lang siya sa shelf. So I have this very OC thing that I do, and I vacuum seal them. So I vacuum seal my books and put it back on the shelf para hindi siya maalikabukan. Alam ko na hindi ko na siya babalikan in a while, so gagawin ko muna yon. For those na hindi pa siya naka-vacuum seal, then they're still inactive reference, so to speak. People ask me, do I lend out my books? Sabi nila, books should be circulated. Pero ako, I don't lend my books. I know it's shellfish. Pero ang dami kong mga kaibigang nawala dahil hindi binalik yung libro ko eh. So, pero objectively, a library has to be circulated. It has to be shared by a lot of people. I know that. So if, for example, a friend of mine wants a book that I have, I'll just buy a copy for that friend rather than giving up my copy and risk losing it.
And for you, how important are books?
Well, we do have a lot of research on the state of the country's readership. The latest EDCOM report showed that we do need some changes. We do need help for our kids because the functional literacy is dropping. So when I started my content on TikTok, the idea is the content should trigger the desire to read more. Yun yung intention nun. In the early time na I was doing this, I had a bibliography. So if you wanted to read the actual sources, you could go to this Google document, and I put all of my resources there. Then I found out that only 2% of the traffic actually go to that Google document. So it was medyo disheartening. So I realized that if it is very important, I have to mention it rather than showing them where the source is. I feel that the world is changing. People during my generation had to read to learn. People in this generation may learn differently. So yes, they have the books, but they also have videos, but they also have other ways to learn. And I have to be happy with that fact na talagang nag-iiba. To achieve mastery, kailangan pa rin yung libro. If you are talking about light information, sure, you can get that from video. Sure, you can get that from other sources. Pero to achieve mastery, dapat alam natin na you have to read the book.